Hey there friends, and welcome back to Shabby Shack Studio. Come sit down with me as we light a candle, pick up our pens and paintbrushes and begin our December bujo. Can you even believe that we are on the last month of the year again? And this is actually my anniversary, 2 full years of journaling. So it actually feels like so much longer. But at the same time, it feels like it went by really, really quickly. So this is technically my third December because I actually started in December 2 years ago. Just feeling that I needed to take a moment for me and just celebrate my art. And I've always kept a diary, so instead of purchasing one or having my family put one in my stocking and wrap one up, put it under the tree, I thought, how about I create the perfect journal for me with the pages that will make my heart happy and keep me organized and on track, and finding time to be grateful for the little things when days feel long and hard and all those things. So anyway, moving on, I've started with, this is my cover page as usual. I've started with a bit of a watercolor. I do like to start my month with something that's special and in my heart and that is particular to my life and what's happening. I have thought of doing a theme for the month, and I did start my journaling by, I did have a theme. I did fruit each, so it was different fruit each month. But for me this year, I just thought, I thought long and hard about it, and then I thought, what, I had a lot of moving, and I moved twice within 6 months, and I had so much going on this year with a new house and a new collection and so many things that I had on my plate. I thought, what, maybe I just give myself a bit of grace and not overthink it, and which is what I'm always saying, and just go with it and just announce it each month as it happens. And you know what? It's really worked for me. So I would love to hear what you think though. If you'd like to know and if we're going to work with a theme, or if you would like to see more of something, pop it in the comments below. If you follow me on socials, feel free to throw me a DM or comment below all the images I share with you. Anyway, so you can see this very sweet little watercolor. Now, if you want a longer version of this, I did do around a 20-minute video of, which is a bit more real time, only very slightly sped up. And it actually you can paint this with me if you want. It has all the details in it about my color palette and all of those things. So these are my Van Gogh professional series, but we are all about keeping it real and keeping it inexpensive here in the studio so that art is accessible to everybody. So if you would like to see a longer version of this, I will link it for you below, as well as all the supplies and things. Speaking of my candle, you can see in the top right hand corner there, I lit that beautiful candle. That was gifted to me from Buckley Phillips Aromatics. You have seen their candles before in some of my artwork. I am so blessed that they thought of me this Christmas and decided to send me this beautiful candle. The smell is fabulous. Never gives me migraine. So if you are a migraine sufferer and really susceptible to smells like me, you're going to love these candles. So I'll link that for you below just in case you'd like to have a peek. Anyway, you can see me finishing up my cover page here. This is my favorite Mont A5 watercolor notepad. It is a 190 GSM, but like super cheap. This is, and I mean the price is super cheap, not the quality. The quality is exceptional. And I love this textured paper, and it has that perforated top, and I can tear that off and add that straight into my journal. So for me, perfect. So I just did a little tree farm #1. Again, you can add, if you want to do that watercolor, you can make it into a basket or anything that makes your heart happy. So okay, turning the page, I have actually gone on and started with what is actually my first page, which is my page keeper. So this I have been doing all month. And this just makes it really easy to find the month if I'm flicking back and forth. I love too that I have the month on this. So I have DEC for December, abbreviation, of course, and that means I don't actually have to put it on my watercolor, which means if I want to scan that in and turn that into something else in my busy creative life, which I always do, I almost always do, it allows me to do that without actually having words or something that I would have to try to edit out, which would be a pain. So I can just scan that in and play with that watercolor otherwise and add that to a collection. So anyway, my page keepers are all done on my favorite black cardstock with my white Pilot gel pen, as you see. I'll link it below for you. I didn't warm this pen up, so it actually was picked up and I hadn't used it for some weeks. So if it looks like it's running out a little bit, probably is from overwork, but it actually runs really beautifully. So I will link it below. If you're looking for a white gel pen, this will be the one. You will love it. I will link the cardstock as well because this is a favorite, and it comes in, you can buy it as a standalone, or you can actually buy it in a pack with a really nice grey, a really nice sand, which is like almost like a craft paper brown but softer, and a white as well that I use later on in my journal. The journal you can see below that says The Adventurous Fall was made by from an old book from one of my favourite authors, Memories of Childhood, right there. I do actually have a vid that shows you how I made this. I will link that for you below as well. So you can see my page keeper there. Just you can see my theme already, little decorations. This all began because I saw a friend was making these beautiful advent calendars and she'd shared it online, and I normally do a month at a glance, so it's kind of a little bit of a take on that. And as this month flies by so quickly and I'm so busy, I don't really end up going back and filling in my month at a glance. So I thought this was a really fun way to do an advent calendar. And instead of putting my squares, I just denoted each day with a sweet little picture. So you can see that I've done that sketch first and I share that all with you. I even go back and watercolor this. So I've literally taken my cover watercolor, so you can see that on the left. That on the other side has that little tree that you just saw. So this paper is nice and thick, so you can flip it over and you can get creative on that page without having to then have waste. And there's no ghosting, so none of this ink that you can see or watercolor that's on the other one, etc., none of that goes through to the other side, so it doesn't ruin the page on the other side. So the white that you can see, or the off-white you can see, is the same cardstock as the black, and it comes in this slightly off-white. Now, if that bothers you and you want both pages to be nice and crisp or the same, then by all means do it your way. But for me, I like my diary to flow. So for me, I don't mind at all. I'm happy if they're two different kinds of paper. And because I have made my own journal, I punch them and just add the pages as I see fit. So that's one of the wonderful things about making your own journal and not purchasing a pre-prepared one, is that it actually gives you the ability to add pages that from notepads you love, watercolor paper, beautiful thick cardstock. I do use a digital silk paper that I love. I use a mix and it really gives you that freedom. So maybe it's something to think about. But I did pick up the book at an op shop, so the pages and the story were actually quite damaged. I have kept them and set them aside because I will find a project for them later. But in the meantime, the book otherwise was looking like it just wasn't well together, so it didn't feel so much like I was destroying a book. I felt like I was saving a book, if that makes sense. And I love the reduce, reuse, recycle. So if you followed me for a minute, you'll know that I'm always picking up bits and pieces when I'm thrifting or op shopping, or just that I don't like to necessarily be pinned into this is what something was used for, this is what it always has to be used for. So you will see, like even my color palette that's there, that has my watercolors that have dried now. That palette is just a sweet little section bowl I picked up from H&M. I believe it's sold out now, but you could find something similar in so many places, including the op shop. I just love the sections, and for me it sits nicely in my video when I'm working with you guys as well. I like to have my pans as half pans, like you can see scattered around. You can see the cotton reels at the top of your screen, and they're actually vintage cotton reels that I love. And then I actually hand stamp ribbons. They're part of my gifting range, and in this case, instead of wrapping them onto cardstock and packaging them up beautiful to send off to my wholesalers and off to my lovely customers, I wrap them around old timber reels. So again, it's that whole repurposing thing. The textile you can see underneath, I'll link for you below as well. That is our farmhouse stripe, and that is part of our second textile collection that I've just released, and it will be available in a wallpaper too soon. So just a little bit of info. Okay, so I've already talked about the paper and how I flipped that over, and now I'm using my favorite pigment liner to do some little pictures. I do skip ahead a little bit on the advent calendar because it's actually it was a little bit time consuming, but it was fun. I did it with a nice Christmas movie on in the background and enjoyed the moment. So I just designed any little pictures that came up to in my head, bells and Christmas decorations, little presents, stars, a mug full of hot cocoa, holly, a little toy soldier, that's a string of lights I'm doing right now. So whatever comes to mind for you and makes you think of Christmas, by all means do that. There's a little gingerbread house for you, so I do skip ahead a little bit to not repeat the same pictures, but then you can see kind of how I did it. They are a little kind of cartoony, a little bit anime. They're not too perfect, which is wonderful for me, and it absolutely is my style, not just I guess generally, but it also is my style in my journal. I like to not overthink it too much. And then I've just put the days, as you can see, and I'm just going to put a little cross through those days as they happen. I'm going to make it easy for myself because it's a really busy time in the studio and a busy time in my home, and I'm a mum, so that probably explains everything, all the Christmas shopping and the food and all those wonderful things. So it helps me enjoy the season and not get too stressed out overthinking everything. And then I simply put it's the most wonderful time of the year here at the bottom. So obviously this is on the 2 pages, and I'm about to skip over, there you go, to the second page. So I will let you enjoy this, and I'm going to pop back in a moment. I'll put on some background music for you. Okay, so there's all the little sketches done. As you can see, it was really a fun and joyous little detail, and I really enjoyed doing it. And then I actually came back a little bit later because I was looking at it and I thought it feels too black and white. I wanted to add some colour in, and I've been umming and ahhing about whether or not I should do a colour palette. So I think I might need to ask my family for some metallic watercolors this year in my stocking, or from Santa. Might add them to my Santa list, because I would really like to actually have done add some metallics to a colour palette. Maybe I'll go back and do that later if time allows. Anyway, I decided to come back and add some watercolours in. Again, all those colours will be listed for you below, so don't stress about that. And as you will see on this one, the first page is on the back of my watercolour paper. The second page you can see there on the right, that is actually cardstock. That is not watercolour paper. I actually couldn't find my watercolour pads and things like that when I first moved last year, and I moved right before Christmas, so it was a really stressful time, and I was just super keen to get into my Christmas spirit finally and put the tree up and all those things, and I needed to do the Christmas cards for the family. So I actually picked up this paper because it's the first I found, and I found my watercolor, some of my watercolors, and I just did some really light sketches and played around watercoloring on this paper, and I was so surprised how well it did. It really held the colours nicely. It allowed me to even lay them up and play around, and it didn't damage the paper. It didn't kind of peel or buckle or stress. So I feel quite confident adding a bit of watercolour to it for my journal, and I will do a watercolour Christmas card video, so you just have a look if that's something you would like to do. Hit subscribe. I would really be ever so grateful for your support, but you'll then know as soon as the video is up. So I'm going to try to do a whole lot of Christmas videos as we get closer to Christmas, including some Christmas card ideas and things like that too. So if it's something you'd like to do and you would like to do that with me, that would be wonderful. Hit subscribe and you'll know all about it. Okay, so there you have my 2-page spread, my advent calendar with a sketchy dash of watercolor style, celebrating the most wonderful time of the year. Okay, then I've turned that page directly over as well, and as I said, no ghosting, no watercolor, no visible picture from the other side. How great is this card? So I decided to do a letter to Santa. Now you could make this into a wish list of what you would like and then leave your journal around for somebody to see. Or you could, and this is what I'm thinking. I'm thinking my Dear Santa is going to be a letter kind of mentioning all the things I'm grateful for this year. It's going to be a moment for me to sit down and celebrate my wins, to think of how far I've come from this time last year. So even when I was making this journal, this setup, as I mentioned at the beginning, I realized that this is actually my 3rd December creating a Bujo setup, which in itself feels huge, especially with so many other things always going on, and 3 years feels huge. But then that also meant that I had spent 2 full years bullet journaling and making time for me, making time to not just sit down and create this and share it with you, but gift it to myself so that I'm actually looking at something that I want to, I want to fill in, and I want to write in and remind myself, and, all those lovely things. So my Dear Santa letter was a really simple pencil sketch and a little bit of ink, and an opportunity for me to make it whatever I want to do, and the same for you. So if it's something Maybe even something you could do with the kids. The sketch is really simple. You saw me do that, so by all means, copy. And then the kids could even write their letter, because if you're a mama like me, I get Santa to leave me those letters so that I can keep them to remind me of just how wonderfully small they were way back when. So, and Santa leaves them for me in my stocking every year, and I get to keep another little memory of my babies. Okay, so before we finish up, I need to do our weekly spread. I decided to make it quite simple for myself. I decided to do some little holly and berries through the center, divided into 3 sections with my days of the week at the top. Again, make it yours, as I always say. If you need to have a whole page to a day because it's your crazy season or whatever, you might actually use it as a diary as well and write how your day is, or some mindful moments, or whatever that is. But make it yours. So put as many days as you need, or as few as you need on your page. Again, this was really quite simple. I just did a really light pencil sketch just for spatial awareness. I don't really ever follow it too exactly. And then you'll see me come back and use my favorite kneadable eraser that erases so nicely on this digital silk paper, and come in with some of my favorite Copic markers, which layer up and just go on so nicely on this paper. It's really quite smooth. You can see me being quite careful with my little clear ruler on these pages, because it does take a little bit longer for the ink to dry, and I try not to smudge. So before I go, more than anything, I want to say thank you so much for being here with me, whether that's this month or all year long. I appreciate you, and I hope you found time for yourself. I hope that I've helped to remind you to find time for yourself. I hope you've enjoyed what I've created, and maybe enjoyed creating it with me. But more than anything, I hope that peace and plenty lift the latch to your door first this year. And that your 2022 has been kind to you, and you find time to, even if it's been a tough year, to think about all the wonderful things that have happened, and how blessed we all are to have this beautiful life we have.